Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel is Discerning What is True. Can you hear me, Phil? I can't hear you. You don't need that. You don't need that.
You sure?
Yeah, I
Oh,
I,
okay.
I just got the right button.
Oh, I see. Okay. Right. Okay.
Hey, work in its own. I mean, it's technology is great in some ways, but you don't know how to use it all the time, or it always
Yeah.
changes. Makes it really awkward. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
um, are you
Okay.
wanting to? I think I talked to you and shared with you yesterday about talking about what the Old Testament is really saying by its particular characters.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I thought you might want to elaborate with that. Um, I just want to welcome everyone here. This is a live show with Phil Langdon. Phil Langdon is the only one that I know of who has actually had the ascension or enlightenment that's taking place in his life. This occurred about 9 years ago in 2014 when he was at Angkor Wat in Cambodia. And what we're going to talk about today could be one thing is going to be talking about the Old Testament characters and what is it revealing? Is it truly a literal perspective here, or is it something much deeper that's being relayed in the Old Testament? So, Phil, thank you for being here. You got the
Yeah.
you got the floor.
Oh, thanks for asking me on. I appreciate that. Did you want to go? Did you want to go to anything in particular?
Well, I'm going to think about simply as we could go into the idea simply with Adam and Eve. The idea simply is that who created them? In other words, we're told that God was involved, but if you look in Genesis, the first part of Genesis, you'll hear the word either us or we, and basically that gives you an idea that something's not right. In other words, God would be a individual, a spirit. So why is there a us or we in Genesis? And then who was this who actually invented the human being, so to speak, or created them, I should say?
It's a lot easier to explain using graphics because a lot easier. That's why
Oh,
I use so many graphics in my book on purpose. You can just see straight away what it's talking about.
okay.
So
So
it's a lot
is
quicker.
that in your ascension book or not?
Which one, Brant? The original?
This one here.
Oh, the handbook. That's the first, but that was written 7 years ago, so it's quite old. The graphics are quite old.
Uh-oh.
The most, yeah, I don't know whether I can show you graphics on this. I don't think I
Yeah, that's what
can.
I'm trying to figure out too. Let's see what it says. Settings. Let's see. Camera, general audio, visual. Da da da. No, not there. Let's see what else. Hold on, bear with me a second. Layouts it will allow you to do whatever that means. I don't know if that'll do it.
Layout. I don't know what layout is. What is this? I've just lost you, Brant. I don't know where you've gone. Where have you gone? Everyone can see and hear you. Okay, I've lost you, Brant. I can't see you anymore, and I can't hear you.
Okay.
You. That's
How
it.
about
That's
now?
it. That's better. Yeah, now I can see you. I can hear you.
The more buttons I push, the more confused I get. Uh, okay. Well, I guess what we could talk about is about the demerge. I guess to do with that particular deal.
Yeah.
Means because that's part of it. People are confused that they think that God has created Adam and Eve, and I think that's not true. There's a hint in Genesis, but
That's right.
most people
It's,
overlook it.
Yeah, the issue there really, I found out by looking into Gnostic texts and comparing them with the Hebrew book of Genesis. There's quite a lot in Gnostic texts that is comparable to Genesis. On the Origins of the World, for instance, talks about Adam and Eve quite a lot. Another one is called Hypostasis of the Archons, which literally means the reality of the rulers. It can be very distracting. Semantics that are used in these religious texts can be very distracting.
Okay.
For example, when we say archons, if you listen to a lot of the Gnostic YouTube channels, they think archons are beings of some kind.
Correct. They think they're either ATs or sometimes extraterrestrial beings from somewhere else.
Yeah, it's a total
aliens.
Total misnomer. Archons are not beings. They are everything but beings. Archons is literally the nature of reality. It's just a way of encapsulating reality, physical reality, and the ether. So there's an awful lot to explain. It's a very difficult thing to do to explain this from scratch. So if I said if I give the picture to people that the universe is comparable to a tree. A tree, like let's say it's an oak tree. An oak tree has grown from an acorn.
Correct.
And the product of the oak tree is more acorns. That's the fact that process is present in our world is proof by itself that we can extrapolate that principle of seed, tree, seed to the universe. And if we compare the universe to a tree, there must be a seed condition or an initial condition that generates the universe, such that in the universe, that original seed becomes regenerated.
Correct.
So I'm going to show you a graphic now of the archons, basically. It might be a little confusing to people that have never seen it before. It's this one here.
Okay.
This graphic here. You can see the diamond shape there. What we have at the top, we have the issues of what is called metaphysics, which is nothing more than a word to represent spiritual nature, which is the nature of the observer. It is you. You are not a physical entity. You are a non-physical entity using a physical body in order to perceive what is physical, because you can't perceive anything physical without the physical body.
Right, because we are actually spirits.
Yeah, we're literally spirit itself. And not just that, but the nature of spirit is that it is eternity itself.
Correct.
Spirit is eternity. Physical nature is not a being. It is things. It's stuff. We are not stuff or things. In that sense, we are no thing. We are nothing. We are not physical. That's what that means. Being nothing.
We are using a container or a body in order to be here and manifest on this particular planet.
Yes, the ultimate reason for taking a physical body is to generate heaven for yourself.
Correct.
There is no such, let me tell everybody, there is no such thing as heaven on earth, nor will there ever be heaven on earth. Ever. It is impossible. It is utterly, utterly impossible. Every single human has nothing but free will. And every single human, unfortunately, is born into a physical system. Yes, you're a spirit, but when you're born, you don't know that. You are born into utter, total ignorance. See, everyone is leveled out as totally ignorant when they're a baby. They know nothing about nothing. So
they don't realize where they came. A lot of times simply is they don't have any memory of anything whatsoever, so they come here as a blank sheet. And this is why people don't, that's why you part of it simply is that's why we reincarnate many times here, because it's a process of gradually becoming a little bit more mature as we age and get some knowledge. But the problem is we come back here again, but we develop a little quicker in a phase to be more mature at an earlier age to discover more things about who we are. For example, Phil, probably I'm all right. I don't know about you, but for me, probably I've been here thousands of times, if not more.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, because we don't know. But I'm saying it's not, oh, you've only been here 4 or 5 times. You know, you wouldn't grasp some of these things at this point. And maybe that's the reason why I'll say this. I'm going to go out on the limb here, so to speak. That's why, the population in 1978 or 80 was a little over 4 billion people living on the planet. Now we're told, who knows if it's true or not, but we're approaching, 8 billion or 7.5 billion people on this planet. Okay, so what's happened, if that figure is correct, that means that almost is double since 40 or 50 years ago, the population of the planet, meaning that there are more beings here than there were 40 or 50 years ago, meaning that probably these people who are coming in are either first time been here, possibly. Maybe that's the reason why there is more issues. Who knows? Again, I'm just speculating here. But the point simply is that we are here to transcend. In other words, that's our purpose here. We're here to make heaven, as you say.
Yeah.
For ourselves.
Yes.
Not for anybody else.
No, you
That's
can't.
their free will. That is their choice.
That's right.
So we cannot force anything upon anybody. All we can do is offer what we have gone through, as you have gone through, I should say, that you explained this and explaining and giving an idea. Okay, this is what goes on. Bang, 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 step by step. This is what happened to me, such and such, 9 years ago. Then helps others, if they're in this process, can learn or reevaluate what they think. In other words, what they're thinking in themselves. Wait a minute, I thought there was no God, or I thought God was going to take care of me. Suddenly we're putting out things out now in a way, maybe I should rethink this and what I've been told by theology, religion, or either atheists, or even what I call those who are agnostics, which are basically sitting on the fence trying to make up their mind, which is like a seesaw, so to speak, which is actually a cop-out in my opinion. But anyway, that's my opinion. So, But anyway, I've talked enough here. So what's happening simply is we're here to make heaven for ourselves.
Yes, that's it. That's the only reason you're here. There's nothing else. There's nothing else. The reason for that is because heaven is literally, it looks like a cloud. When you ascend, you see heaven from the outside, and you're right next to it. It's actually behind you. So what goes on is that in your life, if you pursue truth and understanding, you literally align yourself and unify yourself with it, so that you now take on its characteristic, and its characteristic is God.
Right.
So by pursuing truth and understanding, you're not only being honest with yourself about reality, you are literally discovering your own true nature, because God is your true self.
Correct.
So it's not a separate entity. God is not outside you.
No, this is what we all have been programmed to consider, that God is outside of us, and that's not true.
No,
that's what
true.
Religion is. And when I say religion, mainly my Protestant faith, what I believed in for over 40 years of my life, is what they tell you, that God is somewhere up there in heaven. He's somewhere up there, wherever that is, in heaven, on the cloud, so to speak. And he has no connotation with us. He's not connected with us. And that's not true.
Well, not necessarily all. It's not necessarily all not true.
Okay.
It's very easy to define what is going on. It's very easy for people to make mistakes because they don't know the distinctions between things. So God is distinct from heaven fundamentally. God is pure spirit. Nothing else. God is nothing physical about God whatsoever. It is your true nature, God. It's the eternal nature that you share in, that you are. To know oneself is to know God. So God is literally you are in a learning experience to become aware of yourself as God. Not that you're born as God, because God is the fullness the fullness of your spiritual nature. And there is an issue there as well. The fullness of your spiritual nature comes about when you ascend, and it becomes known to you. To start going back to what we were saying, I'm going to show you this graphic in this book here.
Okay.
This graphic here.
Right.
This object with it looks like it is a cloud here. This is a cloud formation, and it has beams of light extending from it.
Right.
This is the cloud of heaven.
Correct.
That's the cloud of heaven. It's in a situation called the abyss, which is timeless and infinite. An infinite expanse is the abyss. There is no boundary to the abyss. It's utterly continuous. This is the nature of manifest eternity. It's a manifestation of what we call eternity, and it is our fundamental nature, and it's pitch black, in a sense symbolizing the fact that we are totally ignorant in the beginning of our existence, as it were. Okay. As a spirit, we know nothing apart from our own selves. Therefore, we come into physical life to learn about logic, to learn about how manifestation comes about, to learn about the nature of what is precisely opposite to our nature, because physical and spiritual are exact opposites. Right. By learning about what's physical, we end up learning about what's spiritual, because they are not each other. No, so when you find out a lot about what's physical, you realize, hang on a minute, there are issues of my existence that don't conform to what is physical.
Which is the perfect duality.
Yeah. You end up realizing you are not the physical body. This light here in the graphic is you. This is you. You literally become light. And light is the discreteness of the continuity of your original abyss condition. So you've gone from one extreme to the other, and you retain both. The light that you are now exists within your own abyss. See? Right. So the abyss is continuity, the light is discreteness. Those are exact opposites that unify in this condition. When God comes to you, see, when you invite God to you by pursuing truth, God notices, God being your true self, is already in the highest state and is always eternally in the highest state. When you start your life, you have a kind of separation in your mind between you and God. It's just a word, it's just a concept when you're a young person. Right. Eventually you realize God is the truth. And it's the truth is singular, and singular nature is eternity. That's your nature. That's your nature. So you start realizing, hang on, I've already got an association with God. So being the truth, there is personal and impersonal issues involved. Right. When you're in the ether, you, the person, personably, as it were, can view your own eternal nature as something that is outside of you, as it were. It's impersonal. It's an automatic thing. You are that nature, yes, but you can see your own nature, right, spiritually, like this.
When you mention ether for people, what do you mean by that? The ether,
right? So this place, this abyss, is technically zero dimensional.
Right. Right.
If you were to view it in the universe, is all the expansion of dimension. Dimensionlessness, which is the abyss, will appear to us from our physical point of view as nothing but a singularity, which is effectively a location, because a singularity has no size whatsoever, and yet it is something that has an effect. You may have noticed in cosmology they talk about singularities in black holes.
Right. Right.
That is an energetic return to the original abyss, which is pitch black, which is why black holes are pitch black.
Right. Right.
Time doesn't exist in this condition. There is no such thing as time.
It's timelessness.
Therefore there is
also timelessness is stillness, which just means it would be still. Correct.
Yeah. Right. Therefore, there is no change whatsoever. If you are the abyss to begin with and there is no change, you need to do something about changing your condition, because spiritual nature is singular by nature. Therefore, there is only one person in all of existence. There is only one being, period.
Right.
All of us are the same being. That singular being is what we call God. There is nothing else, literally nothing else. See, so in that case, if you're in the abyss to begin with and you need to take a life, you need to go into a life, have a physical life, it's because not only are you going to generate heaven as an opportunity, that life gives you that opportunity, but you're going to generate companionship from the singular nature that was the original being.
Right.
As a singular being, you are alone.
Correct.
Aloneness is kind of pointless.
Pointless.
Who are you going to talk to?
Right.
You've got no one to talk to. You've got nothing to do.
Right.
If you're the abyss, there's nothing happening, and there's nothing to see apart from this cloud, which is heaven. So, God has become angels. By generating the universe, by having this condition, angels are generated, which are self-realized, enlightened beings who have become God, but individuated. Okay. See, so now we have companionship at the level of God instead of simply aloneness.
Right.
That is the purpose of all this physical existence, to generate a perfect state, an ideal state for ourselves as spiritual beings. So the physical world is nothing but a means to an end that is not physical, because the entire universe is going to end up in black holes. It doesn't produce anything. It goes round in a cycle from zero back to zero again. So nothing is produced. Nothing. Right. So it's utterly useless. The only use it has is for our personal use, to generate heaven, which is the unification of what's spiritual and what's physical. So you can't generate heaven without coming into a physical life. It's impossible.
Right.
See, there's the issue.
There are people who state that simply God created us because he was alone.
That's it. God is alone, naturally being singular and the only thing that exists, that truly exists. This condition, these two objects here, this is you, and this here we have the cloud of heaven. The cloud of heaven becomes the creator at zero. This is the zero condition of our universe that expands into the tree. So this is a seed, this condition here. This is the seed of our universe. This cloud is referred to as Adam in the book of Genesis, in the whatever chapter it is, the third chapter or so.
Right.
You, the light, are referred to as Eve.
Eve. Okay.
Adam makes Eve from his side, or Eve is made from the side of Adam. That's exactly what we have here. Exactly. Okay. So, we have to understand the fact that this is going to generate what we call a quantum event, which is a tiny little point of light. Nothing more. This abyss can be thought of as a counter space, in that it is zero dimensional and takes up no physical space, even though it seems infinite to our perception.
Right.
There is no boundary. Right. Every single point in that counter space is exactly the same point. So if a light has been introduced into that condition, the entirety of the abyss will become lit up by your presence instantaneously. That will create a quantum event. It's a lot to explain there, but it creates the quantum event that births the universe. Forget what cosmologists say these days, because they're making a real mess online and in public about what they talk about. They're trying to suggest now that there was no Big Bang and blah, blah, blah. They found evidence of this and that. It's a continual problem in cosmology, where they keep finding new things or have new ideas, like the dark matter and dark energy thing has now been basically dropped. So there's an example of how they have to come up with ideas and see if they work. It's a technique. I did astrophysics in university. I know how they do this. They come up with an idea and just go out and test it and have a look, see if they can find it. And slowly, we unravel what's out there in the universe. So it's a very, very slow process. So if we have, I've seen recently Roger Penrose coming out and saying he's not sure about the Big Bang, etc., etc. It's all of a sudden. So you have to take your time with reality. You can't just suddenly make sweeping statements and expect to be right.
Right.
It doesn't work like that. You know, you have to take your time. You have to study thoroughly and test things and check things and what have you. So it seems to be that anyone who becomes illuminated or that we actually experience this condition, that I was in this position here.
Right.
And I had to turn around to see this cloud. And it was right behind me in the first place. I turned around and see it. And eventually I realized what was going on, you know, when I came back to my body and everything was normal again. After about 10 minutes, I figured out what it was all about. And you can do that when you experience it, but you can't when you don't, because you don't know if I'm telling you the truth or not.
Right.
For sure. Not for sure. And there's the issue of finding out for yourself.
That's why you have to take the initiative to do this, right?
You must find out for yourself.
Because you have to walk that particular faith, or what not a faith, but walk and take that decision to move in that direction to cause that to happen in your life. You see, that's what we're setting ourselves up here in some ways with truth. It simply is that we're, in a lot of ways, we're building a pyramid for ourselves. You see, and so we gradually, because truth itself is a singular point, which is just like a triangle. So it's a singular point. So we have all these other things around us, and simply as we gradually say, we say, chunk that doesn't fit in my world, you know. Or a lot of times people make presuppositions as though they are not true, you see, and reality simply is you discounted something that maybe you should have, instead of trusting someone else, you need to do the digging yourself. You know, what I call people state simply is you have to dig deep, meaning you have to take the time and look into these things and basically show yourself saying, I'm willing to dig and look wherever it is to find the truth, no matter what.
Yeah.
And there are going to be dead ends. There are going to be times that simply is you're going to look at something and you just realize this is all bullcrap. You know, this is not true. Then other things you're going to find out simply on this path, you're going to say, oh, that makes some sense. That does make sense. So I hold on to that, so to speak. And then I see it's like a cart. It's like it's having a cart or certain things. And it's like a little boy in some ways, the analogy of him playing with toys, but in a way, because he chooses a toy and says, I don't like that toy because the wheels don't roll right. I want something to roll wheels. I know this is kind of far-fetched, but the point simply is, he says, okay, I like that. I'll keep that in my bucket, so to speak, while he discards something else that doesn't such and such. It's just making those choices in life, and even at a young age, what I like and what I don't like, so to speak, at a young age. Eventually you grow up and you do the same thing, except it's no longer with toys. It's about reality, what is true and what is false.
Yeah, basically that's right. You accumulate. Accumulate. I would call it an accumulation of gems.
Yes.
Gem-like information that is absolutely true, that you can rely on, and you know it's robust. You must gather these and gather them together. I realize that's true. I realize that's true. Let's bring these together because the truth is one. All these different truths must unify if they are true, because truth is singular automatically. So when you gather all this information, it must come together in a coherent pattern of some sort. And that coherent pattern has always been generated on Earth by people as pyramids. They used to build pyramids on this planet in communities on purpose, because the pyramid literally represents your ascension to heaven.
Correct.
It literally represents that.
Yes. Right.
So I also want to say in Genesis, something that people don't understand about these texts is that they spiral. They spiral round and round.
Right.
The text of Genesis, for example, the first chapter will go once around the loop of existence. And to explain to people what that loop of existence is, we have to go back to our previous graphic.
Okay.
Hang on, I'll just get it up again. Where is it? Wait a sec. Oh, here it is. Yeah. So here's the graphic. Let me show you that close on the camera.
Right.
So down here, above, we have the three aspects of what are called metaphysics. This represents you. This person here on the far, your right there, I think.
Right.
That is you. Here is God, your true self. And here is the abyss. The Holy Spirit, God's Holy Spirit, when it comes to you and you ascend, expands into the abyss and becomes the abyss, becomes the ether. The abyss is referred to as ether.
Ether, correct.
Ether is the idea of the abyss being something that you can label as whatever. And we're going to say, well, it's nothingness, but we need to call it something. We can't just say it's nothing. Let's call it ether.
Right.
As a spiritual condition, which is the fifth condition, because everything physical is made out of four elements in the old world. The fifth element is your spiritual nature. Right down here,
which I've understood simply is the ether is, like you said, is the spiritual dimension, and that's why we have the base of the pyramid being the four elements, also, and then the one being the spirit is the unification. That is because that's what brings again you to heaven.
That's right. Yes, exactly right. That's it. So on the left, is that your? Yeah, I think it's on the left.
That's right.
So I've shown that here represented by the Holy Spirit, the abyss is the seed condition of the universe, which expands and develops material in more and more complex accumulations. So originally there is an expansion of energy, a very simple idea. Energy then coagulates and becomes material. And the material forms what are called protostars or proto-masses that eventually collapse to form black holes initially, and then the black holes will produce galaxies. Oh, I need to plug my computer in. Hang on 2 seconds. I'm just going to plug it in.
Okay.
Hang on 2 seconds. I've got it right here.
No problem. You take your time.
That's all right. It's in. Okay. So the black hole is shown right at the bottom here. This is a black hole.
Right.
This represents protostars and proto-masses that eventually form black holes that now create stars in a galaxy in a cohesive pattern, as opposed to just randomly floating around in physical space. And it's all cohesive, and you get planets. You see stars, solar systems form, planets form, creatures start growing on the planets. There's creatures everywhere in the universe. It's perfectly normal. Life is absolutely normal everywhere in the universe. There's nothing unique about the Earth whatsoever. Here we have creatures. So we have the Earth and the idea of vegetation. A complex accumulation of energetic systems creates creatures that we call animals. And the animals are instinctual. The greatest animal on Earth is the human being, and we are still animals, basically, but we are intellectual animals. So it is the cerebral aspect of the creature that has developed with the human being, to the point of understanding their own nature, because a creature can't do that. They don't have rational thought that we do, like we do.
Right. They don't have a way of deciding what they want to eat, per se. Not per eat, but what, it's you have 2 or 3 choices, and we as a human, we can make those rational decisions. So I had cake or whatever last night. I'm going to have steak tonight or whatever. While the animal just simply has an instinct. It just goes whatever it wants to eat, it eats, because that's by instinct. It doesn't have a choice per se. It does have a choice, but it's a different way. Yes, because we have a rational choices, so we can choose between 3 or 4 or 5, 6, whatever choices we want to, and choose 1 or 2, whatever we decide to do. Per se.
Yeah, I mean, an animal cannot contemplate philosophy.
No.
No. So
doesn't know why. Doesn't understand even why the sun rises each day. Doesn't understand that the moon comes out at evening, such and such.
No, they're just
moon, such and such, and then there's no moon at all, so to speak. So
they're purely instinctual animals, really.
And in reality, I'm going to jump the gun here and say one thing, but in animals do have the eventually, I've heard this, you can tell me yay or no, that they eventually can evolve to eventually become a human being. Is that correct? Or is that out there in the wind?
I think they can. I think certain animals can. I mean, we come from, we're very close to primates or monkeys.
Right.
As animals. Human beings are 98% genetically linked to monkeys.
Correct.
You know, so we're basically very clever monkeys on planet Earth.
Right. So I mean, what I'm saying simply is there's always the way this particular thing you're talking about is by, you sharing there is from a gentleman named Arthur Young. Is that right? This particular guy here shares this information because that's what you're showing here. So he's taken what I call these little pieces and made and eventually added them up like an upside down pyramid, so to speak. And then gradually comes to the bottom and it goes back up.
So there's a movement towards greater and greater energetic nature. And then once it hits its maximum, it comes back to the more spiritual nature.
Right.
And that process is shown on the Kabbalistic tree of life, which is 10 points that shows that very process.
Right. I have all my books somewhere here, but never the right ones where I want them. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Here it is.
This is see, and this is all. If I can find it real quick here. Kabbalistic tree. Where's it at here? It's got to be. I'm looking for the one that's in color because it makes it easier for people to see. Naturally, I got to go through every page here to see it. Which this is a brilliant book. Probably the best way I explain it. Best book I've seen explaining this particular deal. Maybe it's not. It's here. I know. The other thing I want to say, simply, I'm right here at this particular calendar here, the menorah, is that the key is simply is the middle one, which is here in your head, is lit first, and when that happens, it goes to all the other chakras. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a big subject. I don't like talking about chakras because there's a movement sort of against that sort of thing in the West, and it's not very useful to talk about that in certain terms.
Okay.
Sometimes it can be, but I try to avoid it because I like talking as if scientists are listening to me.
Okay.
So I like backing up what I'm saying, and it takes a while to explain the chakras. It takes time to explain chakras. People don't understand them. Most people don't understand them. They just assume they're there, have no idea what they are or what they mean. Right. There are a more ethereal or spiritual version of your endocrine system.
Okay.
And chakras are things you develop during life. You're not born with them as such. You're born with
that potential. That's the misnomers that people think they're born with these in their lives.
No, because you develop them as you live.
Right.
Chakras.
Right.
And they become part of your spiritual being.
Right.
So when you eventually ascend, it means you developed all 7.
Right. That's what I meant by the menorah with the candle.
Yeah. If I show you this graphic here,
right
over here we have what's called a donut.
Correct.
A torus. A torus is a 4-dimensional process. It has a 3-dimensional shape, but it represents a 4-dimensional process, which simply means that it is something that is constantly changing. And yet it is rooted in a fundamental idea. So it never disintegrates from itself. It reintegrates with itself. So a torus having a central portion, if you look at a torus, you can fold the torus through itself. Correct. The surface literally folds through itself. And that process represents the overall process in the universe in very, very simple terms that we can apply directly to the tree of life as a process from the initial abyss, which births the universe. It creates more and more substantial and accumulated energy systems that end up creating a creature, a body that has the capability of generating the heavenly cloud. That is our position. This physical body has the potential to make the heavenly cloud. All that's missing is you and your free will and your choice to pursue truth, to unify with truth, and generate that cloud as a result. You meet God, because God is the truth as well, not just your true self, but the root of all things. And you can only generate heaven when you encounter God and have a unification spiritually with God. The thing is, the cloud you generate, because it's a unification of what's physical and spiritual, it is represented in most texts as if it is twins.
Right.
So in the Gospel of Judas, for instance, Jesus Christ is the cloud as you produce it, as the cloud of heaven for you personally. But in the abyss, creating the universe, that cloud also has an impersonal nature. And its impersonal aspect, this automatic nature it has of producing physical phenomena, is referred to as the creator. Correct. So it has a creative role and it has a redemptive role for you personally.
Right.
Because of that, it's spoken of as if it is twins, two different people. It's personified. In the Bible, the New Testament, the cloud as the cloud of heaven is personified as a person called Jesus Christ.
Correct.
Jesus Christ is the cloud of heaven, if anybody didn't know that. The cloud is also the devil, which is strange. That must be very, it must be very confusing for people to hear that, because they've just heard it's Jesus Christ, the Redeemer, and the Son of God. How can the Son of God be the devil as well? Well, it's simply a role issue. Its role in your head is the Redeemer of your ignorance. You were born into ignorance. It will remove your ignorance when you achieve this cloud of heaven. As the creative principle is generated a quite a nasty sort of system. Physical nature is considered to be a sin in and of itself, or a corruption. It's like a corruption of what is perfect and spiritual. It's not the same as what's spiritual, so it's lesser than what's spiritual. And if that cloud has made that lesser condition, it must be the worst thing there is. It's done something that God never wanted. But this physical nature is a necessary evil, as it were. You cannot make heaven without it.
Okay.
See, so we come through the physical world, which is considered to be nothing but demonic and evil in its own nature, because it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't benefit you by itself. Right. It does not have your interests at heart. The universe around you couldn't care less whether you live or you're alive or dead.
Right.
See, it's completely indifferent, and that indifference is the nature of the devil. Totally indifferent. Doesn't care whether you're alive or dead. Who cares? It's a thing. The cloud of heaven is a thing.
It's not a person. Not a person, right?
Yeah, it's a dwelling place for you when you don't have your physical body. Because there's another issue that people have no idea about when it comes to spiritual nature. Spiritual nature itself is what's called leverage. I don't know if anyone is familiar with the term of leverage. If you have a crowbar and I want to prise open a box, I stick the crowbar in and I put the elbow of the crowbar onto a surface that is absolutely rock solid. So I can turn the crowbar and open the box, leveraging the crowbar off that point that is zero, that is absolutely solid. Right. The abyss has this quality, which is spiritual. It is spiritual nature that is leverage. It is literally, you are a point of leverage yourself. And because you generate as a leverage point, you need somewhere to dwell that is going to kind of cancel that effect. So you see, spiritual nature is active. People don't realize that. They don't think of it as active. All action is based in spiritual nature. Therefore, it is spiritual nature as zero that is the point of leverage for anything physical.
So you're saying simply is that all actions in our lives has a spiritual ramification.
Yeah, you are a spiritual being. All your thoughts originate from you and as a spiritual being. When I went to the abyss, I was thinking as I normally do without my physical body. Therefore, thinking and being aware has very little to do with your brain, it turns out. It is
Oh,
a spiritual issue. You are free to think of anything you like. In the
I
abyss,
didn't know. I didn't know that. I would
mm,
have thought it would have been something to do with spiritual. Your head. Like you have to have your head. I understand that part, but what I'm
no,
saying simply is we think that's because the head is all what we. The head isn't every. Who we think we are. Everything about us is up here. It's our head
mm,
that
mm,
decides. If I want to eat ice cream today or not, or eat something else, or if I choose to read a book or listen to classical music or what any of these type of things,
mm,
you make that decision up here and you think
mm.
it's all up here. But you're saying simply is that even when you're in the abyss, you didn't. It was not what I would think it would be.
There are no restrictions on thinking. I could think of anything I wanted to, and what I thought about literally appeared in front of me. In other words, the abyss is like the inversion of your mind. So now, instead of thinking, when you think, things appear in your mind's eye, and you contain it in your head. You think it's contained in your head. In the
Right.
abyss, when you think of something, it appears outside of you, in front of you. So the abyss is the inversion of your mind. And everything that appears is not real. It's conjured by you. See?
Is that what we would call a way of saying manifest in some ways? Also, could that be
Well,
what that's about?
it's a thought form in the abyss is a
Right.
kind of manifestation. A kind of manifestation, yeah. But
All right.
you
Let me.
can make it disappear like that.
Okay.
You
Well, let
could
me. I'm going to spec. This is a speculative question. When we go back, let's say, so to speak, back to the spirit world where we were before we incarnated here, were we able to manifest things there in a spiritual, since we're all spirit and it would be just like that?
yeah. So if you die and you don't know that you've died, let's
Right,
say you died in your sleep,
right.
you will continue to perform as if you are in life. You
Oh,
will automatically reproduce everything that you know about your life in the abyss. Some people stay there for way too long because
oh,
they don't even know, they don't even realize. This is a weird thing about the abyss and your imagination. You can fool yourself into thinking that you're living a physical life in the abyss, which is bizarre. It is bizarre, but it is true. I couldn't believe it, but I realized I could conjure anything I wanted to. Anything I thought I could reconjure the entire universe if I wanted to, but none of it's real.
no, it's real.
There is nothing objective about it in the abyss. It's all subjective, only
Subjective, right,
subjective.
right.
See, so
So you
now
would never be able to find truth in that particular realm, so to speak. No way.
exactly, yeah, because it's anything you want. And if you want
Right,
to win in a competition, let's say you generate some, you think you're living life and you go and enter a competition, you can win it just by
right,
thinking, I want to win this, and you'll win because
right.
everything will go in your favor because it's all subjective. So
But
you,
it's
you
not
can't learn
objective.
anything from that.
No, you can't. You'll be just like a little boy spoiled,
Yeah,
so to speak.
basically kind of like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
because you'll get your way all the time, and you won't realize simply it's life, real life. That is, if you're back incarnated in the world, it doesn't go that way. And I wonder if that's what happens to people when they do come incarnate here, that they had that same thinking, so to speak, that they can do whatever they want to do. In reality, simply, it doesn't work that way in the
that's right.
objective world.
That's right. This world is objective instead. It's not
Right,
subjective anymore. Yeah, but the cloud of heaven in your subjective abyss, the fact that there is an abyss is an objective quality, but your performance in the abyss is purely subjective.
objective.
So the cloud of heaven that is in the abyss with you is an objective object.
Okay,
It is robust. It is absolutely objective and it's real. That is genuinely real, the cloud of heaven. And it's the only genuinely real physical thing that can ever be produced in all of existence, in all of eternity. There's nothing else because the universe is an illusion. It's an illusion performed by energy. It's like watching a play on a stage.
right. Someone
It's just
called
a
that
passing thing.
right.
After a certain time, it won't be there anymore.
No,
See, so it's nothing but a means to an end. Anything physical is nothing but a means to an end. So they talk about the cloud from the start to the finish in the Bible. It's the subject of the Bible, including your ascension to it. It also includes, of course, at the beginning of Genesis, it talks about the creation of the universe,
Right.
and it actually does it correctly. But people think that it's an utter nonsense now because the semantics are so strange. See, there's nothing wrong with the contents of Genesis. When Genesis goes through the kingdoms of nature, as it does, they are precisely the same as our diagram, which is, let me get it if I can. Here it is. Here are the kingdoms of nature.
Right, they're the kingdoms, correct.
So here we have the light as the creative principle.
Right.
It generates the universe of energy. I've shown energy as a spectrum of different colors of light there. Right. And then we have an idealized atom to show that the atomic nature is a kingdom. There is the atomic kingdom, and that is referred to in modern day as the table of elements.
Correct.
See? Right. So
some would say the alchemy table, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah. And we all know that atoms get together and create molecules.
Correct.
Right. So molecular nature is mineral. It's the mineral kingdom.
Right.
So we have the electromagnetic, the kingdom of light, which is physical light, not
which we know that simply with what's his name? You know, we're talking about him earlier. I think it was yesterday or the day before. With here it is. Walter Russell. With light. Yeah. With light, and being that the universe is electrical.
Yeah.
It's all electric. Which most of
I'll be very careful. I'll be very careful with that. A person needs to understand the depths of physics to go into that subject, because you'll end up confirming or seemingly confirming that people think there's nothing but electricity in the universe, when in fact a deeper issue is gravitation and acceleration and mass, and electromagnetism does not account for that. So there is this deeper issue. You won't be able to account for a black hole just using electromagnetism, I'm afraid. It's not possible. There's at a large scale, gravity is much more powerful than electromagnetism. Electromagnetism is useful at the small scale. Okay, so with a black hole, you have with energy, so you have rates of change that most people are not used to, which is very difficult to talk about when people don't know what you're talking about. A rate of change, anything in the universe has a position. It's an object, therefore it takes a position.
It takes a position, a place anywhere. Right. Okay, I follow that.
Your body is an object, so it takes a position in space, in the universe. If you move an object if you keep changing its position at a constant rate, you have a velocity.
Correct.
If I keep changing the velocity, I have an acceleration.
Correct.
If I keep changing the acceleration, I will go back to my zero condition that started the energetic expansion in the first place. But I will now have a position that is nothing. A black hole is the negation of physical stuff. It's the opposite. It's the equivalent of the little hole inside our Taurus.
Okay.
So what you have is a switching over, a handing over, like a relay race. You start with an object that's physical, and you end up with a position that is nothing, surrounded by what is physical. That's a black hole.
So it's an inversion.
It's an inversion, of the idea of a position.
Right.
Now your position is defined by the material around it as nothing.
Correct.
Being nothing, literally nothing. That is the equivalent of the abyss. It's exactly the same.
Right.
So the nature of the abyss is now going to expand itself into the universe via a black hole, because a black hole is the abyss in the universe, and the abyss contains this cloud, and you, of course, and all of you are a point of leverage. So a black hole is going to become a point of leverage in the universe, and it's going to generate things and organize things as a point of leverage, as a processing point. Now,
Right.
this is just talking about the physical nature.
Right.
You know, it's got nothing to do with spiritual nature. It's just an automatic energy. Energy is nothing but automatic, and it's stuff. It's not a being as such. See?
I asked this question here to deal with what I would call when you say the word abyss, the connotation to many Christians is the word hell. I'm in the abyss.
It is. It is hell. Yeah.
Which it is
hell. Yeah, hell. You know, have you heard Gog and Magog?
Yes.
You've heard that expression, Gog and Magog. Magog is the domain of Gog. This is nothing but Jewish allegory. Gog is the creator. It's a way of referring to the creator. They have a million different names for the creator, Jews. There's thousands of different names. I mean, the list doesn't end. It just goes on and on. You can invent names for it as well. But Gog and Magog. Gog is the creator. Magog is his domain, but he has two domains. The first is the abyss, and the second is the universe. As the creator, he's the devil. The devil is the governor of the abyss as ether and the universe. Therefore, every creature born into the universe is a child of the devil, a child of the creator, because it's physical. They are born into physical life, not spiritual life. The devil governs physical life.
Now I understand why Augustine, in a way, he would consider what he called he considered that the act of having children, sex, was satanic in a way. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yes, I know what you mean.
And he would call that the doctrine of original sin. He would call that because he said coming into the physical world, physical is satanic, you see, in his perspective.
Yeah, but that's just a way of referring to it. It's simply like saying physical nature is not spiritual nature, and spiritual nature is true.
Here's let me go one more time. You said God and Magog. Growing up in a fundamentalist church, in a Bible-believing church, so to speak, that was talked about in the area of eschatology in the last days, which is being spoken of today almost all the time, Gog and Magog, as though it's like some place on the planet, and a lot of it's referred to do with the Russia and Israel and the United States, basically Russia and Israel, whatever. But this is what they've done. They've completely turned it around. All this stuff that's in there, they're misreading what is being spoken of as just, and they've taken it to the literal, almost a literal truth, to the point simply is we're living in the last days. We're in Gog and Magog. And what you're saying simply is it has only to do with the physical and the spiritual. That's all it has to do with. If I'm correct.
Yeah. So Gog and Magog represents the Archons. You could rename Gog and Magog as simply the Archons. Archon nature is authority nature. So the abyss is an authority. Let's leave you out of it. You have the cloud. The cloud is made from what is physical. It's spiritually produced, but it is a physical shaped. It has a specific form and shape. Therefore, it came from what is physical, but it was birthed by what is spiritual. And that cloud, being physical, is associated with the four elements. So now you have the abyss, which is ether, and the four elements. You have now 5 issues. There are 12 archons. These are 5 of the archons: earth, water, air, fire, ether. These 5 aspects of the archons. The other 7 aspects are the 7 kingdoms.
Correct.
So all these issues together make 12 issues, and they represent a totality of what is effectively a manifest nature, because the heaven is a manifestation. The abyss is a manifestation. God remains unmanifest.
Right. He's out.
Okay.
He's not inside that picture. So
Nothing to do with creation, nothing to do with the universe whatsoever. God remains the truth. That's all. That's it. God is God. Nothing compares with God. The universe does not compare with God.
I'm going to jump the gun here. Is that also why we hear this 12 disciples? You also give an analogy simply is that the 12 signs of the zodiac are in your head. Also, is not the disciples also to do with the zodiac also, but also could it be also with the archons also?
Yeah, so the archon nature is the fundamental nature that becomes manifest in everything in the universe. Your head being a microcosm of your body, because your body is a microcosm of the entire universe, your head is also a microcosm of the entire universe.
Yes.
So the entire universe is encapsulated by the 12 archons. Therefore, your brain will have the same structural nature as the 12 archons. And you do, in fact, have 12 what are called noetic or intellectual forces that relate to your cranial nerves as well, because they implement, the nature of your will with your physical body.
Right.
So the 12 noetic or intellectual forces are personified in the New Testament as 12 disciples. In the Gospel of Judas, it actually says one morning Jesus appeared to his disciples, and he found them contemplating. They were contemplating on bread. Right, that's a metaphor for your position just before you ascend and generate the cloud of heaven, which is Jesus Christ, that suddenly appears to your 12 disciples. So the Gospel of Judas is talking about the moment of ascension and the nature of the difference between what's spiritual and what's physical. It delineates that, and it personifies what is everything's physical as Judas, who is the creator. Judas is the creator. Jesus Christ is the Redeemer. They're both the same cloud. That's why they have a special relationship above all the other apostles, because they are the same issue, the same item.
This is also why there's a connotation or definition, or what do you want to call it, that Judas is the bad guy.
Yeah.
The bad guy.
He's the devil.
You see that? So I understand this is because he's the one who betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, which I'm sure that the 30 pieces might mean something too also.
Yeah, that's right. It does. Yeah. And it's pieces of silver, notice. So that idea of betraying for 30 pieces of silver is going to separate Judas from Jesus, isn't it?
Right.
It's as if they're no longer going to be friends.
No longer going to be friends. Right.
Well, what does that represent? It represents your separation from what is physical into your ascension, generating Jesus Christ. Okay. See, who is now no longer the creator for you personally.
Right.
The cloud that was the creator,
yes,
that you were born in, whose system you were born into, you have now overridden that. You've transcended his system. So you've beaten the devil.
You've beaten the devil, right.
Yeah, and that's thanks to God. Only God can do that. Only God can beat the devil. So you must align yourself with God in order to beat the devil in yourself, as it were, that your physical nature, which is instinctual and animalistic and automatic. See?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's something else I want to say. Last night, I want to tell you, when I say last night, this morning, I was up, not up, meaning physically up, but actually up here, in bed, woke up and contemplating all these things in my head. And this has happened twice with me when I also, Monday when I had you on, I also woke up at that time and had all these thoughts in my mind. And the problem is I should have got up and write these things down, so to speak, because there were thoughts in my mind, and I was like, oh yes, which is what I'm saying about contemplation is what we call meditation. I think that's what was going on last night and Monday night, the same thing. Being up for 2 or 3 hours, I'm trying to fall asleep, but yet my mind is so racing, going on, dealing with these issues in my head, and that is true meditation, if I would call it. Is that correct?
That's contemplative meditation, but the word Christian, the word that Christianity or the Bible or the Gnostic text would use for contemplating truth is prayer. That is prayer. When it says pray in the Bible, it literally means think, contemplate truth. That is prayer. Don't stand there with your hands together begging for things. You won't get them. God will never give you what you ask for.
He only give you what you need. He will not give you what you want.
God gives you what you need, not what you want.
Right.
God is your highest self. Your highest self is going to give you what you really need, not some.
And that's to your best interest too.
Yeah,
and it's to your best interest, because if you ask for what you want, you're gonna get. It's not to your best interest.
Not necessarily.
No, because you may ask for a relationship with a woman. You think such and such, da da da. You are in love with her, and I want her, such and such. You pray to God for her, and that doesn't work out. Well, in reality, she might have been the worst thing for you.
Yeah.
I'm going off on tangents here. I don't mean that, but what I'm saying simply is, we don't even know how to pray for ourselves, because we think God is some Santa Claus is going to give us stuff.
Yeah. That's what I get from. I think most people think like that. They think if I put my hands together and say, please this, beg me, I beg this, I beg that. What are you doing? Who are you talking to, by the way? Who exactly are you talking to?
I'm talking God.
God is not outside of you. So why are you saying it into the air? Who are you talking to?
Okay, I see what you're saying.
The only deity outside of you that you'll be talking to is the devil.
Devil, right? Wow, that's it. That's right. You're correct. Yeah.
See, so
it's amazing when you're just. That's a good point. I mean, because I pray. I've said to you before, in other talks we've had, one-on-one privately. I pray for myself, because simply is that I'm seeking what you have had, what's happened in your life. And I see that simply it has changed your life. And that was, you explained this in the last time we were talking. You've had and I tend to be very much like you in certain ways, because I'm very serious-minded too. I don't get into all these sometimes practical jokes and stuff. It's just like, what are you talking about? But anyway, it's just not my makeup. But the idea simply is that I learned this in church. You see, to do this, pray, please have, pray, such and such. And this is what, and actually, we don't even know who we are, Phil. We don't know who we are.
Can you see what you're doing when you're praying, when you put your hands together? That is a physical symbolism representing the unification of what's spiritual with what's physical.
Right. Unification.
It's a way to say, look, I'm unifying opposites, and I'm going to find heaven by contemplating the truth.
Right.
That's praying.
That's praying.
Yeah.
The two pillars coming together and coming in the middle.
Yeah, making heaven, the cloud of heaven. The perfection.
Which is also with what Bethlehem is all about. Making heaven. Making bread.
Right. That's right. The house of God is Bethel. Right. Yeah. Bethlehem is a house of bread, because your life is like baking bread. It's like kneading dough, your life. While you're thinking, you're kneading dough. And then when you get close to unifying the dual opposites of what's spiritual and what physical, understanding them as one thing only, that is you baking your bread to perfection. Yeah. And that's why in the Gospel of Judas, Jesus finds his disciples praying over bread when he appears to them. It's the same principle. It's the same idea.
There are so many illustrations from Scripture that are showing things, and we're completely oblivious of what's going on.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, especially that cycle, the cycle of the kingdoms here, these kingdoms. It starts with the abyss and it goes back to the abyss. So you here at the end of these kingdoms reproduce the original seed with God. And
Yes.
therefore, this represents a continuous cycle.
Cycle.
So
Which is a circle.
Yeah. So
It's
if I want to explain this cycle to you, I will go round and round in cycles, and every time I go round, I'll say something different about it to fill out your understanding of it. And that's exactly what we find in Genesis. That's exactly what's going on in Genesis. The first chapter is once around the cycle. The second chapter is another round the cycle. The third chapter, another round the cycle. Every chapter in Genesis is once around this cycle. And every time they come to the new beginning of the cycle, they call the cloud different names. Its twin nature, being physical and spiritual unified, becomes Cain and Abel.
Right.
See? So Eve gives birth to Cain and Abel. We are Eve. We give birth to Cain and Abel. We give birth to the cloud of heaven. But it has a physical nature, and it will automatically generate the universe from T equals 0. Physically, impersonally, nothing to do with us. It's automatic. You can't stop it. It does it by itself, and it's always the same beginning. There's only one beginning to the universe. Everyone goes back to that same 0. Everyone puts into that quantum event. We're all reinforcing the birth of the universe by ascending. And that birth is considered to be demonic and therefore associated with the devil. And it's Cain. Cain can only bring physical material to the table of God and say, here are my offerings, God. And God rejects him. Right. God is spirit. God does not want your physical nonsense. It's garbage. That's why
I've always wondered why God would refuse to take what Cain was offering. I thought, well, gee, that's being very particular here. But it's not. No. It has nothing to do with that. Simply is that is the physical. He's giving a physical element when it's really actually God is a spiritual element.
Yeah, God is truth.
It will never work. It will never work at all. It can't work because simply God is not physical.
Yeah,
Cain is not physical. He's spiritual.
Yeah, that's right. So you must bring.
So that's why Cain was rejected, because it was a physical.
Yeah. So Cain is the devil creator. Abel is Jesus Christ, the Son of God. It's just a different word for the same issue, the same thing, and it keeps doing that. Genesis. It calls the cloud by many, many different names, but people keep thinking, well, it's different people. No,
right?
It's the same thing. You don't realize you're being told the same thing repeatedly over and over again. And that is redundantly confirmed by the book of Exodus, which is the T equals 0 condition of you as Eve and the cloud of heaven as Adam, repeated over and over again, almost ad infinitum. The entire book of Exodus is an encyclopedia of Jewish allegory on the T equals 0 condition of the abyss. It keeps calling it all sorts of things, like Mount Sinai.
Right.
Is the top of Mount Sinai is the cloud of heaven. And a cloud came and rested on the top of the mountain where Moses stood because he has ascended.
Right.
That's what it means. It represents that. You know, the bull, I don't know whether you're familiar with the bull symbolism. You know, the bull, Taurus, the bull.
Right. The Taurus, astrological, yes.
You've seen people do this.
Yes.
Devil dude. Hey, it's the devil dude. Yeah, these are the horns of Taurus.
Okay.
Taurus, the bull.
Oh.
Who is standing next to Taurus in the night sky? Orion. Orion is the bullfighter who is going to kill the bull. He's standing right next to the bull in the night sky. He's killing the bull because the bull represents physical nature. And Orion represents the spiritually ascended person who is destroying their own physical nature and standing above it, saying, I'm greater than that.
It's represented in Spain. It's shown all around us, and we are not even aware of it.
In Spain, you have the matador who fights the bull. Yeah, the matador is Orion. He is the one who is becoming unified with God, and he kills the bull. He has to kill the bull because it's a symbolic way of saying, I am rising above my own physical nature. I am greater than that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Definitely.
So that's why
you need to get a glass of water. If you get dry, let me know.
Yeah, I got some here. Sorry.
I just want to make sure you don't lose your voice because you're talking quite a bit. You tell me, we've been at it for an hour and 15 minutes, so I don't want to blow you away, but I find this really remarkable how you are able to see all these things, and most of us, just we're trying to rise from our physical nature and become spiritual. And that means us reuniting with God.
Yeah. And let me say, there is no effort in those terms. Contemplating doesn't take much effort. You can sit back, relax, and think and think and think. You're not really burning much energy. It doesn't actually take much effort. And actually going into the sacred trance to meet God is the most effortless thing there is, because you simply relax. It's the ultimate relaxation, samadhi, or the sacred trance.
It's the ultimate stillness too.
Yeah. You focus your mind on the issue of stillness, and you become what you think about. So you become aware of your own nature, which is stillness and purity. And then it expands to your awareness, and you become aware of God directly yourself. Yeah.
And this is how also, if we recall, these ideas have been planted in our heads many, many years ago as children or whatever, as we are totally worthless. That's all part of this whole physical aspirate world. But reality simply is we must rise from all that in order to ascend again spiritually.
Yeah.
We cannot allow that to hold us down.
No.
I think Paul talks about that we are a long distance runner. We're not in a sprint here. This is a long distance marathon.
Yes.
What you're dealing with is the physical aspects to attain, eventually drop those things and get the prize, which is ascension.
Yeah.
Or evolving.
That's right.
I don't like I use the word ascension so much that people don't. It's become a popular word now. Ascended one, and the problem is simply it loses. What's happening is it loses its meaning because now it's just everywhere. So to speak.
Yeah. So some people will say you're learning about, you're learning the Bible, you're ascending. Right. Well, not necessarily.
No, not just. Yeah.
Lots of people read the Bible without ascending.
That's how people get you. That's how things have changed dramatically. How these words, if you don't understand what people are saying, they don't even know what they're saying because they're simply buying into what others are saying. Yeah. They're not even checking out the definition of what they're talking about.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm ascended, such and such, or I'm living in the new age, so to speak. And I'm like, okay, what happened? What do you mean? We're here new, yes, but this is not a new age. There are always different new ages. Once you die, you come back in. So that would be a new age for you, but personally. But that doesn't make any sense. But that is the whole idea of the Christianity and new age is another way of basically I've shared with others is that Christianity has been dying. So they had to bring in someone wanted to bring in another belief system. So they brought in new age. And now we're in a new age. And like, well, what are you talking about? That doesn't connect here, you see. And it's so easy that you see this. A lot of this was also propagated by part of the. I know the name of the author. She was a woman, and this is the beginning of early 1900s, and this is where a lot of this stuff began to take place, and they would call it the New Age.
Yeah.
So
the New Age of Enlightenment. Yeah.
Right. As though the old age years before that was not available, but it was available even then. So it's a way of coming on stage and saying, "Here, we got something new for you," and it's like, but it's not new. You're
that's right. That's right.
So you're playing different characters. So
a word of advice in terms of the Old Testament for anyone: if you want to understand what you're reading better than normal, if whenever you come across somebody's name or a place name, look up the meaning of the word.
So in other words, if it's Moses, you would look up the word Moses. Is that what you're saying? Or you
can look up the word Moses. It means something. I haven't looked it up for a long time, but I was going to mention Damascus. Paul was on the road to Damascus. Saul was on the road to Damascus when he saw a light and became Paul. Yeah, Damascus. What does Damascus mean?
I would assume it has something to do with the light.
I know what it means. It means a well-watered land. A well-watered land is the abyss, because the abyss is also referred to as a bottomless ocean.
Right. Ocean.
Yeah, it's like an ocean, but it's empty. But it's just an expression. It's just a way of referring to it, in the sense that when you appear in the abyss in your ascension, you are the equivalent of a fish in the ocean.
Okay.
So they use the symbolism of fish. If you look at the Pope, the suit, the hat, the mitre he wears, or a bishop, the mitre is the head of a fish.
Is that called a Dagon?
Yeah, Dagon. It goes back to Dagon. It goes back even further than that. John, the idea of John. You are John Doe when you become an angel, because we're all equal as angels. We're all equivalent. We're all the same. Right. We have equal status. So every one of us could just be called John. You say, oh, he's John. Yeah, well, you mean he's an angel? Yes, yeah, he's John. Right. John Doe. Yeah. Oh. So John in the abyss is shown as Dagon wearing a fish suit, dressed as a fish. You could find that in ancient Egypt as well. Men are dressed like fish, because they're turning their whole body into a phallus, because the spiritual, the nature of ascension is equivalent, or it has a similar sort of mechanistic nature to the sex act of ejaculation.
Right.
From a phallus. So if you turn your body into a phallus, you're saying, I'm going to spiritually ejaculate like sperm from my body. So it's just a metaphorical way of looking at the nature of ascension, because it's quite hard to describe and explain. So you're going to use natural world things for people to relate to it.
To get your noggin to think about things, right?
Yeah, and to understand it, to be able to understand it, to relate to it. The same thing happens with all the personifications of the apostles and Jesus. They are personified in order for you to be able to relate to the issues. Because if they just say, here's a cloud, what do you mean a cloud? I see clouds in the sky. They're not people. What are you telling me? A cloud did this. What do you mean a cloud did that? Clouds don't do that. So you're going to have nothing but problems. If you personify it, they say, oh, I see. Okay, so there's a personal nature to it. It has, it relates to me personally. And it's doing this, so it means that. So I see, now I get it. You see, it's just a way to convey things to people that is much easier to grasp than if you do it technically. Because if I tell someone about zero dimension who's never even considered dimensions, what am I talking about? Zero?
It goes right over their heads, because they don't have any idea.
Yeah, so you have to be able to communicate.
Right.
So the Bible is like an ideal communication, but you need to know that. That's all. So then you'll start to get it. When you look up the meaning of words, you start to realize, like the Elijah story. Elijah is on the side of a mountain. He hasn't reached the top of the mountain yet, but while he's there, there's an earthquake, there's a bolt of lightning and a fire, and there is a massive, strong hurricane-type wind. Well, what have you got?
Sounds like the four elements to me.
Yeah. Earthquake is earth. The lightning is fire. Yeah. The great wind is air, the element air. The only element missing in the description is water. And what it says after these three elements are explained is he went to Damascus. So he went to the well-watered land.
Well-watered land.
Yeah.
So it's all being told in a story to do even with the four elements.
Yeah. The story of Elijah.
And that's what also the book of Revelation is also about, is talking about all that. And people think it's actually, what's the word?
Historical.
Not only historical, but actually taking place right now on Earth. Reality, they would think.
No, it's utter nonsense.
And that's like, what are you doing? That's not
what are you doing? Why are you misinterpreting these texts on purpose? Like you think Christians love to kind of pretend that they know what they're doing or know what they're talking about. They're not going to want to stand there talking and look like they don't quite know what's going on. There's no confidence in that. You see what I mean? You can't confidently be a preacher if you have no confidence in what you're talking about. So they pretend this confidence, which is appalling. It's nonsense. It's quite childish in a way. I don't know why they do that.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
Yeah, it is. They're just misinterpreting things, and people go along with it. Okay, there are theological and ethical issues that they might get right. There might be some philosophical issues they might get right. But what about the technical details? They don't understand these technical details, so they can't convey it properly. So they make up things as well. I've heard them making things up literally on the spot just because they want to sound like they know what they're talking about. It's just, oh God, it's terrible. It really is awful.
That's why when I went to seminary, I said to myself, even when I went to seminary, I said I didn't want to be a preacher because I knew there was going to be a higher responsibility in some ways if I became a pastor, because God's going to hold you accountable in some ways in what you're sharing, because you're not only are you deceiving yourself, you're deceiving other people.
Yeah.
And that's a very serious thing.
It is. It is actually, yeah, because they're going to end up passing on. And the passage in the Bible that talks about Jesus saying, look, I don't know you. You have nothing to do with me. That's like saying when you die and you did not make heaven, you have to go back into life to make heaven. You don't know me yet. I am Jesus Christ. You don't know me yet. You haven't made me for yourself. You have not personalized me.
You haven't pursued me.
Yeah.
Only pursued something what you were told.
Yeah.
You didn't find the real me.
Yeah. You have to question
you found someone else, or you created a personification of Jesus or whatever. Yeah. And this is what you think he is. You made him an idol per se.
Yeah.
In reality, that was never me.
That's right. We could even have a long conversation about near-death experiences, some of whom come back and say, hey, I met Jesus. You think, well, hang on a minute. Let's just examine this issue of your imagination, shall we? Because that has a lot to do with it. Because if you're born in China and you never hear about Jesus, you ain't never going to meet someone called Jesus when you die, I'm afraid. You're going to meet some Chinese Buddha or something, Right. It's what you expect.
What you expect.
Yeah. So in a way, but God can use these things. You see, your higher self, if you do have a near-death experience, God can use these things and show you and say, well, look, here's a step closer for you. There's very much a personal service from your higher self during your life. And it's okay if you make little mistakes and, don't quite get it yet, because the further you go, the more and more defined and refined your understanding will become, and you'll get there. So it doesn't matter if you misunderstand a little bit here and there, or you think that was Jesus, standing next to you when you passed on for 5 minutes and came back to your body. That's just a way to help you, as it were, in certain terms, because you're quite ignorant in other terms, So God, your true self, being your true self, it is nothing but compassionate towards you, doesn't want to shock you, doesn't want to point things out to you as such and say, you're wrong. That's not God's purview, Right. He'll encourage you more than anything else. You see what I mean? So he might present an aspect of himself, your higher self, as Jesus, because you were born in the West and the Bible, you've read it or something.
Right.
So things are done in your favor sometimes, just to help you along, even if it might not be absolutely correct.
Yes, because simply is, even in my own life, simply as me going to seminary was, it, in some ways helped me in some ways, but a lot of ways simply it could have been detrimental. Meaning simply I bought into some of the things and part of what I would call a Presbyterian seminary. And they have a very John Calvin perspective on sinners, as though you are worms in the sight of God. That's not true. That is the elderly opposite of that. God doesn't see you as a tiny little worm that you be stomped on.
No.
You see, and it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What you're doing is putting people in an enormous shame and a blame and a guilt type of lifestyle that most never get out of that. They believe that as though they're worthless in God's sight, and that's not true.
And a compounding of that problem is the fact that many religious people do not study psychology and don't realize they have a subconscious, and the nature of their subconscious as what's called a shadow. Because the subconscious, if you don't bring it and unify it with your consciousness, the depth of your subconscious will turn into a monster.
Right.
It literally turns you into a monster, and that there's also you can see that all over the world. People turning into monsters because they don't deal with their subconscious nature. Yeah.
They say People, they, I mean, I know them. I mean, I know all these kind of people who are involved in my family, whatever, and they hold on to this as though it's their hope all their life. They never ask themselves, what if I'm wrong here? What if I didn't do something right here? Just ask a question. No, I've got to believe. I got to believe.
Yeah.
Like, believe in what? This
Yeah.
is like when they shame you and blame you and make you feel guilty in churches. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
And all that, and that is psychological, and it's also psychological damaging to people.
Yeah, I think it
Especially as a young child, it has detrimental effects upon children.
Yeah, it does. I think so.
Because I've shared that. I don't know if I've shared it with you. I think I did with simply is that at 4 years old, in a church thinking I was going to go to hell, and scared me half to death.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. There's another issue with Christianity, in that when you choose to become a Christian when you're an adult and you get baptized, the impression you get is that now, because you've been baptized in that ceremony or ritual, you are now a child of God. That is not correct. That's technically totally incorrect. You are not a child of God because somebody poured a bit of water over your head. It doesn't work like that. You become a child of God when you ascend only. That's a child of God is an angel. The only other beings in the universe other than angels are demons. Born from the devil, born in the physical system. Any physical person is a demon, even though their spirit inside that body. Their physical nature is referred to as demonic. So it's just because it's physical. It's
because
just
they do demonic types of things to other people.
I'm afraid they do. Yeah,
they do.
Yeah, in their ignorance. And they don't realize they're going to have to pay for that. Right. They don't realize. People don't understand the idea of payment and balance. Yeah, that there is balance. When you're given a life, you have to come back out of your life in balance. The perfect balance is when you make heaven, because it's the balance between the two opposites extremes. Anything other than that, you're going to have to pay for. So, and you'll be thrown back into a life. Yeah, back into the universe. You're there to make heaven. Go and do it. What are you doing? Why are you wasting time?
Let me ask you this question. I may have asked you this question the other day. I don't recall. I'm trying to maybe it was another time we talked. The issue of karma.
Yeah.
There are people who speak of karma actually doing with your past life. So you come back in life, but they saying now you've been put in a pitiful situation because you did bad things before. So you're put down or demoted, so to speak. So you're born either in a poor family, or you go through all kinds of enormous, say, for example, being punished by your parents to the point, you're mistreated sexually. But is that part of karma at all from the past, or what is that about, Phil? Do you understand?
No, yeah. Years ago, there was the the England football team. They had a captain who used to be a footballer himself. They had a manager, I think his name was Glenn Hoddle, and he got involved with a medium who told him what you just said to me. She said, people are born into disabled bodies because they're being punished for their past deeds.
Right.
That is absolute nonsense. It's utter nonsense. It means absolutely nothing. You can be born into a super rich, wealthy family with the greatest health on earth, even if you were a murderer in your last life. The point being, it depends on your performance. You see, when you face, we all, because the only thing in the abyss other than us when we die is the cloud. We are compared with the cloud, and the cloud is the perfect creation of God. If you haven't done that yet, it has authority over you. And God, your highest self, knows what the best incarnation for you is in order to help you make that cloud this time. If it takes for you to be born into a wealthy family because that's beneficial for you as that in whatever state you are in, then so be it. You'll not be born into disabled. It's not a tit for tat system, this as such.
See, that would make God the author of sin in some ways too, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, one thing has nothing to do with the other. whatever situation you're born into, whatever you get, physical conditions do not change the fact that you can generate heaven. A lot of it is quite random. If I'm born into a body that doesn't have any legs because my mother had an injection that altered the growth of the fetus that I became, and I'm born without any legs, it doesn't make any difference. It's not going to stop me making heaven. It has nothing to do with nothing.
No, it doesn't.
It's just an aspect of the random physical nature that you have to choose to go to these lives as well, by the way. You're not just thrown into it randomly. You have to choose. You have to say yes. And if you refuse, you are a wandering soul that has nothing particular to do, and you become one of these poltergeists or these shadow things that hang around that very few people can accept. It's true. I'm sorry, but the reason
what you're saying is simply if people refuse to go back and reincarnate, they actually are what I would call a wandering ghosts, whatever you want to call them, that are just bouncing off the wall, so to speak, but they're not in what I call reality. They're not here in a physical form. You see, and
they are still spiritual beings, and spirit itself is that leverage I was talking about earlier, the ability to generate some kind of force in what's physical. And so a poltergeist, a ghost, will go to something and they'll be able to tip your mug off the table because they themselves are a point of leverage. They can influence physical things. They can. They cause utter chaos on this planet, poltergeists. They're everywhere. There's thousands and thousands of them. It never ends. I mean, they're everywhere, and you have to. If anyone has a poltergeist or a ghost problem, just pray to God, and it will get rid of it. That's all you have to do. I see people all the time. I don't know how to get rid of this chaos in my house. A lot of people have to move out because it's a poltergeist, slamming doors every 5 minutes. Not leaving you in peace. All you have to do is pray to God, and it will be removed by angels. People don't know this. They need to know that. And it will be removed.
Yeah, I heard stories that people. It's amazing how television has become somewhat. We're going to, have have a stake and all this stuff, and it's just crazy. But anyway, we won't go there.
So as you can see, I mean, from our conversation today, there is so much to talk about with this subject. We can spend.
Sorry, but we haven't even gotten. I mean, I was going to ask you about the characters. We've gone all the way around them in some ways. Although you talk about what I call the 3-act play that the Jewish writers did, and would you like to explain that to others here also, the 3-act play, because this is because we know that the Jews are involved not only writing the scriptures, whatever they put these scriptures together, but we also know simply is that stories and movies today that are revealed are written by Jews also for movies. So I'll let you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So a physical nature is process. It's always processing, and any process is like a transformation from one condition into another. Like a seed will become a tree. That's a process, and there's a transformation there. So you can always look at the before condition, before the transformation itself, and then the post condition, the result of the transformation. That in itself is a 3-act play.
Right.
So any process, if you want to describe, you can do it using a 3-act play format, which is exactly what I use to show you that Jewish writers are basically doing this themselves. Let me just get you a table. There's a table. Okay. There's a 3-act table.
Right.
These are all the same process expressed in different ways. The top level is the tree of life,
correct,
which is a seed. Here we have a seed, a point representing a single seed being planted in the ground, which is represented by the spreading of 2 points, giving us a continuity like the ground.
Longer a monad, but it actually becomes a line.
Yeah, so the seed is discrete while the ground is continuous. When you unify them, they generate a tree, which now looks like a triangle in the idealized state. And that triangle, the 3 points of that triangle are the 3 points that are shown here. But they're shown unified in a relationship now, whereas before they're separate.
Separate, right.
So now they're unified, they make a tree. And in the tree, in the branches of the tree, is a new point that is the new seed.
Right.
So
right.
this sequence here, this 3-act sequence, is literally the tree of life applied to the process in the universe. And down below, we have the same seed point as a discrete point, as monad, or the original zero-dimensional nature of spirit. The idea that the spirit is a discrete singular entity. Discrete is one. So
right.
we can represent oneness or singular nature by a simple point. The next stage is continuity itself, which is the expansion of the abyss. It's the nature of the abyss. Spirit is also utterly continuous and eternal and never-ending. And you can represent that by a circle, because a circle represents an infinitely sided polygon. So a circle directly represents the concept of infinity.
Yes.
So,
right.
Yes. Now that we have infinity, infinity has no definitive center.
No.
If the abyss is an infinite continuity, where is the center? There is no such thing.
Center.
Therefore, we must define a center, and it takes for a rational intellect, a person, a being, to be able to do that. And that's exactly what we do when we ascend. By generating the cloud, we are generating a center for the infinite abyss. So the cloud of heaven represents the center of all things, which is called Axis Mundi. Axis Mundi.
Right.
And that now, when we define our center, you can see the circle now has a point in the middle.
Correct.
So the circle and the point are literally the addition. Hang on.
Okay.
The circle and where are we? The circle and the point are literally the previous circle added to the previous point. So if you simply add these two together, you get the third item.
Right. Third point.
So this is an accumulation within the same nature.
This is a 3-act play.
Yeah, and this is a 3-act play. It's first act, second act, third act. Yeah, it's the process. Likewise, down here, if we start with the squared circle as the creative nature of the abyss, as the creator that can generate the universe, it's already centered because it already has the cloud in it as the creator. It's going to generate an expanding spherical bubble, which is the universe.
Right.
And in the universe, we are going to encounter black holes, which is a falling back in on itself of energy back to the original condition, which is defined by here. So our Taurus, if we look at from above the Taurus, we will see this. We will see the squared circle, the pointed circle. So the Taurus is an expansion of the original squared circle.
Right.
This is a squared circle. The process of squaring a circle is to be able to define the center geometrically. That's part of the philosophy, and I've spoken of many times before.
Right.
And down below, we have the literal physical application of this 3-act process. And what we have here is metaphysics as 1, 0, and infinity as the fullness of the nature of spirit, with the cloud of heaven right in the middle of that triangle. You can see that. Yes. In the middle, you got 1, 0, infinity, and the cloud of heaven in the middle. Metaphysics, that is. Next to that, we have the physical universe, which is the tree that grows from that seed.
Right.
Metaphysics is the seed of the universe. And in the universe, we have as its physical, energetic third act, the black hole. If we go from the black hole into the material that's generated as life, as creatures and vegetation and us, we are going back to the absolute original condition. So it's like a 2-step process to go back to the original. I'm simply showing you here the nature of energy. The third act of existence is in fact ascension, not the black hole. So this is just the 3 acts of energy by itself without you getting involved yet. See, there are more tables in the book. That's just an initial table.
Yeah, very much. I have the book.
How they relate together.
Let me ask you a question. Is it good to use what I would call an etymological dictionary to look up particular words or meaning?
Yeah, it's always a good idea to look at the original definition of something. Yeah, always a
Right,
good idea.
right,
Yeah, if you don't do that with the word Damascus, for instance, you'll think it's simply talking about a place in wherever it is, Israel or wherever, Damascus. He went to Damascus. It says so in the book. He went to Damascus. Yes, but Damascus means a well-watered land. And in the
right.
context of the rest of the text, what you're really being told is the same principle as 30 white horses standing on a red hill. First they champ, then they stamp, then they stand still. It's a riddle. It's
Yes,
a riddle that is a
yes,
metaphor. It has meaning.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was it done when they write like this? Was it also a clever way of actually not revealing the truth to those who would actually destroy it? Also, Bill.
Not necessarily. I think the depth of understanding you need to appreciate zero dimension like 2,000 or 3,000 years ago is very different to today. We have modern physics today. We're kind of used to hearing about dimensions and all this development and energy and what have you. We've defined things in terms of modern science now, and that's what we have in our minds. But 2,000 years ago, there was no modern science, so they had
Yeah,
to use a certain method, and they thought, well, the best method to contain the depth of this information is the riddle and the metaphor and the allegory. These convey, they're very easy to relate to. Jesus telling all the parables they're easily relatable stories. See, I mean,
yes,
the idea of Jesus putting mud into the man's eye who's blind and telling him, go and wash your eyes in the Jordan River.
right.
There is an entire meaning to the word Jordan, and it refers to coming out of a long time of being hidden or suppressed. You're now released into freedom, which is a metaphor for ascension.
Ascension.
And
Right.
Jesus Christ, the cloud of the Son of God, removes your ignorance, and therefore the blind can now see. That's
Yeah,
why Jesus is spoken of as a miracle worker. The appearance of Jesus in your brain, in your life, your ascension is the miracle of life. And it's repeated over and over again in different metaphors
right,
concerning Jesus healing this person, curing that person. It's the same issue every time. Raising Lazarus from the dead is a metaphor for personal ascension. There
right.
is no such person as Lazarus. There was no such person as Jesus walking around
No,
performing some magic spell to raise some person from their dead body. They'd been dead for 3 days. There's
right.
another metaphor for metaphysics. 3 days is the 3 aspects of metaphysics. And on the 3rd day is a metaphor for ascension, because it's the 3rd aspect of metaphysics that you complete when you ascend. You go through the eye of a needle.
Okay.
The,
Yeah. And it's the same
eye,
thing, supposedly, with even Jesus. It was 3 days.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. That's it. Every time you hear the word number 3, you're being told about metaphysics specifically. Every time. And you can
That's
apply that, of course, to the
okay.
3-act play. Sorry. Yeah.
It's okay. You haven't done anything wrong.
Oh.
I just, but when I was just curious because, part of the church I went to a long time ago also dismissed the Old Testament because simply it was, well, it's for the Old Testament, for the long time ago, and we don't use that anymore. We use the New Testament because this is about Jesus and his way, such and such, and this is how you become born again.
Hmm.
And the reality simply is that they're connected and they work together, the old and new. The problem simply is it's just an excuse for people basically somehow maybe, well, I just don't really know a whole lot about the Old Testament, and I'd rather talk about the New Testament because it's the good news, so to speak. Jesus has arrived, he's going to save you, which is, again, this is a misnomer. It's a lie that Jesus is going to save you, when reality that no, you have to save yourself. You have to
Yeah,
take
but
responsibility. That's the
yeah,
way life is.
you
All of
can get,
life is about responsibility.
yeah, yeah, you
It's
can
not
get
about
away with.
you. Right. You have to get up and go to work. That's
No, yeah,
responsibility.
I was going to say, sorry to say, but yeah, you were semantically, it's correct to say that Jesus saves you.
Yes.
The appearance of Jesus in your brain is a sign that you've ascended. So you are saved. You're saved from ignorance, though. It is ignorance that you are saved from specifically. So semantically, it's true, but they'll tell you as if it's a person that you have to suddenly somehow believe in. When really what you're believing in is truth. The fact that truth will lead you to the generation of heaven and God within yourself. That's the faith that these things are true and exist. That faith will get you there. The fact that, you know, there is truth. You recognize that, yeah, there is such a thing as truth. It is objective.
Well,
And I can find
you
it.
say that even with the word faith, basically is like you're on like on a
Not
long
blind faith.
no, like a long distance run, and you're
Hmm.
you running and running, and you're still looking. You have faith to get to the goal.
Yes.
The goal is what you're
Yeah.
looking for. You
Yeah.
know? And I'm not talking about GOLD. I'm talking about GOAL, meaning that is the goal in your life is to ascend here. That's the goal of all of us here on this planet. Should
Yeah.
be the goal of us to ascend.
Yeah.
That's the only goal in life here.
That's right.
Yes, you have to work and produce, get money and be able to buy food or grow your own food, whatever. But the point simply is that's only a way of nourishing your body so you can get to the goal of actually ascending. That is the goal of all people on this planet, is what God wants you to ascend.
That's right. That's exactly right.
He doesn't want you to fail. That's not what God is all about. That has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
It's just this idea simply is that, you're not worthy of this, all that type of thing. And that's a lie again. So, oh, you're not worthy.
A complete lie.
Who are you to make that statement?
Yeah.
Anybody is worthy of pursuing this.
Yes.
It doesn't matter the time frame, neither.
That's right.
You may be older. Well, I'm getting older, such and such. The opportunity is still there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Always there. It's always there. And if you don't make it this time, you'll have another life anyway, and you can do it next time if you want to. The opportunities are always going to be there. The only time you can't do it is if you refuse a life and become one of these ridiculous poltergeists.
Right.
I have no respect for these beings when they do that. No respect at all. I haven't got time for them.
I guess basically do they come to the point simply as nothing's going to happen? So maybe I should go through the reincarnation deal, I guess. Go back. I don't know how are they trapped? Are they actually have an opportunity to get back into the reincarnation wheel?
They are not actually trapped. These people are bloody minded.
Oh.
Okay. Do you understand? Bloody minded. Oh, yeah, I can go to another life. I can have this. I can have that. Yeah, whatever. I'm just going to wander around over here and irritate these people because that's fun to me.
Oh.
See, it's great fun. They can't see me. I can move things and scare the living daylights out of them, and I can get their attention, and I can get energy from them because they're attending to me. They're focusing on me in their mind, wondering who I am, what I'm doing there. I can take energy from people. Oh, look, I don't need you.
Yeah. Is that similar to what we call an energy vampire in some ways?
Yeah. Ghosts are energy vampires. When they attract your attention, they're energy vampires. Yeah. Because they haven't got any, they can't make their own energy. They haven't got the means. They have to take yours. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And if they can do that, they think, well, why would I bother going back into life? I can just take as much energy as I want from these stupid people. They don't know. They don't know anything about me.
Right. Right. You're right.
This planet is a complete mess. It really is.
Yeah, it is.
Mess. It's a shambles. A shambles of a planet. I can't believe it. It's utterly appalling, this place. Yeah, fighting, warring, war. Why are people at war? What is the problem?
What is the purpose of war? It's just it has everything to do with destroying someone else. When we're all of us, no matter who we are, no matter color, whatever, we're all a part of God.
Yeah, that's right.
And yet we follow these so-called leaders, authorities, to the detriment of our own, not only the detriment of destruction, not only of their lives, but other people's lives that are basically innocent.
That's right. That's right. It's despicable. Hence, demonic nature. Earth is demonic, fundamentally demonic. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. It's physically oriented. It's all about ego and how you look and your esteem, your prestige, and how big your house is, and all this kind of nonsense. It's utterly meaningless.
This blows my mind when people, they don't even understand. They're taught. They don't understand why they're even here. They're here to attain whatever the goals. Not what I mean. I mean, that's not goals. I mean, to impress everybody else.
Yeah, that's right. Why would you?
Like, what an empty life you have in order you live a life to impress others. So
it's bizarre, isn't it?
It's like you're a fool.
That's right.
You're a damn fool.
That's right. Yeah. The world is full of that. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. Saklas. They call the creator Saklas, which means fool. The creator is a fool. He can't generate ascension. He can only generate physical stuff. That's it. It doesn't go anywhere. So he's a fool. See, they call the nature, the physical nature of the cloud, the fool. Yeah, it generates fools. What a ridiculous nature, hey? What a ridiculous thing.
It blows my mind, and when I look at people have known in the past, and just look, I don't know where they're at now, but I'm just blown away. I feel sorry for people who simply believe in some book. They're looking at it literally, and they're not seeing. They trust someone. It's just like you send your child. And I say this sometimes to people on Facebook. You send your innocent child that's 5 years old, kindergarten or first grade. You don't even know who the teacher is in that classroom. You don't know what type of person it is, yet you trust that person.
Yes. Yeah.
Male or female, whatever,
That's right.
Treat your child the way you would want that child. And most of the time, a lot of times now, we're seeing that's not what goes on. There's destructible things going on even in school. Why would you trust someone of that? Why you don't even, and that's the same way you trust a preacher. You're trusting someone to tell you something when it is your responsibility, if you have the Bible, to read it and try to figure out what it is talking about.
Yeah. If no one explains metaphysics properly, then you
Right. But why? The question is simple. I'll say this, Phil. The Bible is the number one seller. I don't know what it is now, but the number one book on this planet.
Yeah.
And yet no one knows what it's talking about.
That's correct.
So we have a bestseller.
Yeah.
Say it sells $50 million, 50 million copies a year, whatever.
Yeah.
And yet no one knows what it's talking about.
Yeah. It's as if everybody has bought a copy of The Hobbit and they've read the riddle that Bilbo has with Gollum, saying 30 white horses standing on a red hill. And they'll read that and think, at some point in history, there were 30 white horses standing on a hill, like a desert type red sort of looking hill. No, it's a metaphor for teeth. Teeth. On gums. It has nothing to do with horses, my love.
Horses.
Nothing. Right. There are no horses. Forget horses. Look at your teeth. Okay? That's what it's talking about. Find out what it's talking about. Don't just read it literally, my God.
And that's the easiest way to look at things, is to look at it literally. I mean, I'm not making fun of people, because that's the way I looked at it myself.
I know. And
I thought, why is God doing this? Why is in the Old Testament, why is God destroying these cities or such and such? Well, they were not the people of God. The Jews are the people of God, and God said to strike them down. And what are you talking? See, you're taking it. And when in reality, that makes God look like he's a devil.
Yeah.
That is not what is meant by what is being read in the Old Testament.
And guess what Sodom and Gomorrah represent?
Well, obviously, it's not what they claim it was doing with. I think it had a lot to do with homosexuality and all kinds of licentious, immoral activities.
No, nothing to do. No, not necessarily. Sodom and Gomorrah.
No, I'm saying that's what I was taught.
Yeah. Sodom and Gomorrah are the two brain lobes.
Wow.
Lot's wife becomes a pillar of salt.
Right.
That's the cloud.
Cloud.
Yeah, it looks like a pillar of salt.
And everybody sees her turning back, and she turns to a pillar of salt.
That's what you do when you're in the abyss. You turn around to look at the pillar of salt. Yeah, it's nothing but a metaphor. Yeah, it didn't happen. There were no nuclear bombs in Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, no, some say that. I mean, that they everything, they turned it to a pillar of salt, meaning everything was destroyed. It's like, okay.
No.
I'm thinking of simply as I'm sorry, thinking of what God must be thinking. If he's thinking, it's like, what is going on down there? I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yes.
I was like, oh, this is a horrible mess.
Yeah, that's why he sends angels to these planets, because people get lost. They get totally lost. Yeah. Bizarre.
Well, let me ask you something. We're right at 2 hours here.
Yes.
I know you got to get ready to go.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about one little thing quickly here, because I want to make sure people understand this, because in dealing with the issue of when you had your ascension moment in Cambodia, and we've talked about it, me and you have talked about it, simply thought about going there, but it's now not closed, but there's certain issues now that are taking that you have to be involved with what I talk about. A vaccine may be possible, such and such in that country.
Yeah.
But it's not a place necessarily that you can actually ascend. In other words, you could ascend when you are actually it doesn't have to be a certain particular place, or maybe I want to make sure that people don't think, okay, I've got to go here in order to ascend, because in reality, you got to be ready to ascend.
Yes.
You just can't just show up there, because you've told me many times you've also gone to Rome.
Yeah.
There also, meaning you've gone in a particular place that you could feel
Pantheon.
the spirit.
The Pantheon. Yeah, it's called the Pantheon.
Right, Pantheon.
Yeah.
And yet people walk in and they don't have experience. The same thing you told me about Angkor Wat. People walk in, such and such, it's a nice place, I like it, such and such, but there's nothing that happens there. So reality simply, yes, in reality, it doesn't occur to everybody that goes there.
No,
because they are not ready to ascend.
That's right. Technically, because it's ley lines we're talking about, and the production of effectively an energetic fifth type element that is a vertical nature of it's a kind of spiraling magnetic field you get from when ley lines cross. You get spiraling magnetic fields. They're quite subtle, but they affect you, and they affect your so-called chakras. So the more developed your chakras are, the more affected you will be. The idea being that if you go to your local church, every single church in England is built on the crossing of ley lines. Every single church. So if you walk into that church,
I did not know that.
Yeah, every single church. Therefore, you will be in an environment where there's a spiraling magnetic field going vertically up into the sky, and it makes you feel like you are lighter, and it has an effect on you, and it helps you. It literally helps you become or come into this sacred trance. See,
correct.
So, and they have a candle light in the church that's always on when you're in the church. You could literally just sit there and stare at the candle flame and go into samadhi if you were so inclined.
Yeah, I was going to say we need to talk about samadhi. It's because reality, what's happened is people who are having some type of experience, but they're not having a samadhi experience at all.
No, not really. Not necessarily. Some of them do, but a lot of people, there's a thing with people that they want the great experiences, which is absolutely fine. But if they have a trivial experience, they will aggrandize it into something far greater than it really is. So there's a thing with people that they want more than they've got, as it were, and they want to speak more on something and say that it's greater than it really was. Like when you have a party, they'll tell you, hey, you should have gone to that party last night. It was great fun. But if you were there, you might not have had much fun.
No, you might have had not much any fun at all.
Yeah, and they're just making it sound like it was better than it really was, you know.
Yeah,
Not necessarily always, but
basically what they're doing is simply lifting. They probably maybe in some ways didn't even have a good time themselves, but they was with
yeah,
other people, which a
yeah,
lot of people like to be what I call a people person. They like to be
mm,
around people, extrovert.
yeah,
But
yeah,
the point simply they had a good time. But the point
yeah,
simply is if you're an introvert, you would had you would never had a good time because there'd been a bunch of
mm,
people there and your personality would not have gone click with these people. But
yeah,
I would like sometimes that we would maybe I'm going to ask a question. Are you still free this week?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah,
Okay. Is it possible you could do another talk this week,
yeah,
Thursday or Friday? You
yeah.
want to do it tomorrow?
Tomorrow's Thursday. We can do it tomorrow. Yeah,
I like
yeah.
to talk about samadhi in some ways, and we don't have to talk about all that. I mean, not
Mm,
all that. I mean, I'm sure it won't take up 2 hours, but
yeah.
my thought is simply is, I believe that people are confused that they've had. I know there are people. I know at least 2 or 3 people who have said they've had some type of event in their life, but they don't talk about what you talk about, Phil.
Mm,
And I believe just simply is they didn't complete what they started.
mm,
Okay.
mm.
And
Very few do.
you give an illustration of this based upon the gold key and the silver key
Mm,
and being basically two acts, so to speak, if I call it correctly.
yeah.
And most people have gone through maybe the first act,
Yes,
but not
that's
the
right.
second.
That's right. Because when you have experience with God, you think that's it. That's the ultimate. I've met God. What else is there to do? That's what people think. Yeah. And God, being your true self, is not going to stand there, as it were, and be a being to say, "Hey, no, 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 there's something else to do." No, no,
Right.
no. That's down to you. That's down to you. You should naturally think, "Wow, this is the nature of God. What does it mean? What does it mean in terms of physical nature?" Oh, yeah, I see. God's the unification of spirit and energy, as it were. I can find the oneness of all things.
Shakti and Shiva.
Yes, you contemplate because you've met God, but a lot of these people don't. They just think, "Oh, it's wonderful. That's it. I've met God. That's it. I don't need to do anything else. I can now talk to everyone about God." Okay, fine, but you can't tell them anything about ascension
No,
because you haven't done it.
never done it.
Yeah,
No. In fact,
big
the
difference.
group that I was involved in 2.5 years ago was a group called the TAT Foundation, but it's part of Richard Rose's group, which is part. Um, we've talked about a little bit of this, also talking about Zen,
Mm,
which is where you being the observer, you being the observer of the observed. There's two, and they have some type of event that takes place in their life, but there's nothing else.
mm,
And actually, most of the leaders in this group, 2 or 3 or 4, have actually done this, but they don't go into any detail what happened. Just say simply, "This is what happened," such and such. They don't go into details, and I'm thinking, well,
mm,
why don't you go in details and share more about that? In
mm.
other words, I'm going to say this, speculating. Did you really have some type of event that really took place in your life, or are you just simply saying this? In other words,
Mm,
maybe you're lying about it. Maybe
mm.
I'm not saying always, but the point simply is, why don't you share the details about it, or is this a mystery that
Yeah,
you're not going to share with others? Because
yeah,
reality simply is, are you covering that up? And that's
mm,
not what. If that was a true deal, why would you cover it up? You would
yeah,
want others to know this. You would
yeah.
want
Sure,
them to be in
exactly,
the same state you are in. So,
exactly.
okay, so why would I want to? If I truly love myself, but also truly love others, why would I
Mm,
keep something from someone else? Well, they're not
mm,
mature enough. No, that's
mm,
not exactly. No, no, no. You can't make that decision. You see,
mm.
because that's their choice.
That's right. Yeah, I agree.
So, so, so this was a guy, and he was, and I've talked to you about it a little bit. His name was Richard Rose, such and such, and I
Mm,
was involved in this group. And then I was involved with. I spent 2 weeks. I'm sorry, 2 nights a week talking with
mm.
these people, having talks, such and such. And this went on for approximately 4 to 5 months, such and such. And I'm thinking something's not right here. Something's not right. And I eventually left the group. And so what I speculate simply is that maybe they've had some type of event. And I believe that basically this Richard Rose guy spoke about Zen. Well, Zen is not samadhi.
No,
it's not.
That's right. That's right. It's not. No, no.
And that's the problem. People don't understand. Many are involved in Zen deals, but you don't understand that samadhi is the whole enchilada. It's the whole picture. It's everything. It's not. Zen is just a partial deal.
Yeah, Zen effectively is not thinking.
Right.
That if you want to put encapsulate it into an idea, it is simply not thinking. It's just being. Right. Zen. Yeah. Yeah.
And that has become enormously popular. Right. In the last 20 years or maybe 30 years, whatever, it's becoming more and more popular because people are buying into this, whatever, such and such. But they didn't really have any. That has not changed their lives neither. You see.
It won't. It won't. It won't change anything.
It won't.
It's just your.
Just being. And I'm not putting these people down. That's not
sure.
the point here. I don't anything to think, oh, I'm better than them, because I haven't had any end moment. But what I'm trying to say simply is that's not the complete picture. You're getting a hot dog, but you're not getting the bun wrapped around it.
That's right. Yeah.
You see.
Yeah. That's basically.
You're not getting the complete deal.
That's right.
Yeah. And others are telling now they're not. This group did not charge anything, so to speak. There was not money wise. You could get involved in something of that nature. And so the whole idea simply is what I gather. Part of this is simply what quieting the mind. The mind is always chatting. We know. Okay, it's always thinking da 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 da, and it's all. And the older you get, it gets worse, as far as I can tell. And so, what do people think? What is this? And it's all over. And so, but my point simply is, my feeling is for others simply is you didn't have it all. You didn't get the whole thing. Someone cheated you. And, you need maybe just to look into more into this. And then I had someone I said something to, about Angkor Wat, such and so on. And people say, well, I'm going to go there. And I'm like, but, doesn't mean you're going to anything happen there, because if you're not ready for ascension, nothing's going to happen. And you're going to waste $3, $4, $5 grand doing that type of thing.
Yeah.
And so, and I've got you off the whole thing of doing what I call the ley lines, and I don't want to keep you much longer.
Oh yeah, that's okay. Yeah. Well,
I want somehow, in a way, there's only a few people that are even interested in this, and I know that. But I do care about people, and I want them to know the truth.
Yeah.
And Bill, I think you're trying to share the truth about what has happened in your life.
Yeah.
And that's why I come to you in a relay to learn. I guess I was considering myself lack of a better word, a discipler of you, but I don't know if that's a good word, but it just simply I learn things from you. And I don't, and if somebody would say something, well, you're grandizing him or putting him on a pedestal. No, I'm just simply trying to learn. That's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I don't put myself on a pedestal at all. I mean, I can see the potential.
I never have since that. But people will think, well, you talk about a lot. You talk about Phil a lot. I'm like, well, Phil's talking about truth here. I would want to go to somewhere, wherever it's at, to find an explanation of what the Bible's talking about. What's it mean here?
Yeah.
If it's the #1 seller book of the world, supposedly, there must be a reason for that in some ways. But yet the sad part, people don't open it up because they don't know how to read it. They don't understand what is actually being said in that.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And so we sometimes speculate, oh, they didn't. Basically, I've said this. Well, the monks must have wrote what they wanted down here, such and such, seriously. And they basically left out certain things so that we would never figure out what it's talking about. I said that years ago, but the point simply is, I was a fool. I said that. Yes, I'll take responsibility of that, because I made that analogy and said, yes, it should be literal, and I don't know what he's talking about. What are you talking about? Resurrection, you see.
Yes. Yeah. That's ascension. That's just another word for it.
Another word for ascension, correct.
That's right. Yeah. There's lots of words for it. Salvation is another word for it.
Yeah. Well, actually, Scripture says today is the day of salvation also. Interesting that the scriptures in the New Testament is a verse that says today is the day of salvation. So what it means simply, if I understand, there's any day possible that would be the day for you to ascend.
Yeah, and technically, really, if you're reading the Bible, you're reading truth if you understand what you're reading, and therefore it will lead you to your ascension, because the truth will lead you to ascension. That's what takes you there, truth, understanding truth.
So it doesn't actually even have to be a so-called place.
Not necessarily, no. You could do it at home.
Right.
Yeah, you can. You can do it at home. But normally the home is not conducive to such things, see?
Right.
Because when you do ascend, you're going to have to... between meeting God and ascending, for me, it was 5 days. And those 5 days, I had no disturbances whatsoever. I was completely on my own. And I didn't move. I just sat in a chair all day.
Yeah, I remember you telling you sat in that very chair you're sitting at now.
Yeah, yeah. If I'd had children running around me all the time, I wouldn't.
You would not be able to. Yeah, you'd have a hard time. I don't have any kids here. There's no kids.
Yeah,
I'm not married, so I don't have that problem either.
Yeah,
so,
same.
You know what I'm saying? But I was hoping that someone would have asked some questions here. I'm going to check on my Facebook and see anybody's. Is anybody seeing anything here? No, I don't see. No, there's no questions at all.
Right.
I wanted to see if anybody asked questions. I have far less subscribers. I think Steve has probably 3,000 or 4,000 subscribers, and I have approximately 500.
Right.
And a lot of them, when I call, we're talking today, are either at work or either in other countries. So it may be a dark, whatever. So, but anyway, I'm blabbing. I need to let you go. So we'll try. Is it okay? We try tomorrow morning at the same time.
Yeah, sure. I'll be here.
And I was trying. We never get. I was talking. I'd like to talk about Zetepi. Also about. I'm trying to think his name right quick. The one who spoiled it all, so to speak, for the Egyptians. Ankhenaten. Yes. Ankhenaten. Talk about him and what took place in that whole situation. And we can go everywhere you want to go. I just thought something of that nature because I did mention that. And you know, people are welcome to ask questions always. There's no dumb question, really. There isn't.
Yeah, basically.
Right. There isn't. It doesn't hurt to ask questions. But I'll let you go, and then we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I know you got I think you said you work during the morning and you have the rest of the afternoon off.
Yeah, I finish at 11 a.m. every morning this week. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much again for your time, Phil.
Yeah, thanks for asking. My pleasure.
Hope I didn't interrupt you so many times. I just try to put it together in mind.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. Yeah, very good.
Okay. All right.
Great.
Okay, we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Thank you, Phil.
Very much. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Cheers, man. Bye-bye.